Hello, and welcome to Inspired Leadership, a podcast where we speak with change makers and HR leaders about all the things needed for today's modern workplace. I'm Jamie Klein, founder and CEO, and I run Inspire. We're starting our 19th year, providing organizations large and small with interim fractional expertise in the area of HR business partner, total rewards, talent management, and talent acquisition, always with a lens on inclusion. And it's always fun to get together with folks who are thought leaders in these spaces to really understand how we can help our clients operationalize, create efficiencies, create cost effectiveness so that they could just show up for their employees the way that they want. And it is my distinct pleasure to welcome a longtime colleague, Ian O'Keefe, founder and CEO of Icona Analytics, who has what I call a beautiful mind. And I never leave a conversation without learning three new things, speaking to Ian. So Ian, I'm thrilled to have you so you can share with everyone at least three things that they can take back to their desk. Welcome.
Thank you, friend. It's so good to see you, and always good to be here and chat with you on any level that you like.
Oh my gosh. So you are one of the first folks I know who was AI obsessed, leaning into it. So I know that you've seen it all, but just to kind of set the table, what are some of the ways that you are seeing HR teams using AI? I know that I've seen a bunch, but I want to start with kind of what your experience is first.
Yeah, I love it. We could talk all day about this. Uh, I think for one, just to zoom out on that question, you've heard me say this before, Jamie, but I think now, like in 2024 and 2025, like we HR, all of us are experiencing AI and generative AI in the same way that HR orgs experienced the internet in 1999 and 2000. It's like, what is this new thing and how does it work and how doesn't it work and how can we use it to help uh, this workplace be better and help our operations be better? And can we use it to be more productive? And so I think everyone is still feeling that out. ChatGPT and OpenAI really splashed us with GPT 1.0 in the fall of 2022, and 2023 was like a year of bedazzlement
Uh-huh.
and a lot of bright lights and some piloting. And 2024 was the same. And now there's like, all right, this is not just going to snap into place automatically, like the way the internet just didn't, and the way machine learning just doesn't solve everything
Mhm.
for you, and big data doesn't solve everything for you. So the way I see AI being used, generative AI specifically, uh, like language models and so forth, they're really good at helping you summarize, among other things. So, like
Mhm.
summarizer use cases, job descriptions, helping you solve the blank page problem. Help
Mhm.
me write a job description. Help me summarize the comments that we're seeing in survey feedback or new hire feedback coming in from survey channels,
Mhm.
360-degree feedback, navigating policy and procedure documents, loading them and having AI reference them and tell you something about them. I think experimenting in ways that are accessible and kind of like low risk and right in front of us, with job descriptions, with employee feedback, with policy, any documentation. AI is beautifully well equipped to read on that and help you interpret that, and also solve the blank page problem of like creating a document
Yeah.
from scratch. Also. Like something I use every day and we do at Icona a lot is coding. So I think the one of the paradoxes here, and maybe we'll get into this when it comes to like how is AI affecting like the workplace and skills and so forth, is things that I've seen a lot of analysts over the years be expert at and get really, really deep in, like SQL coding and R and Python programming and coding. Um, there's AI applications out there like Cursor that are, you know, they you kind of chat with a bot that will spin up code for you, and you can write hundreds and thousands of lines of code and debug it in an afternoon
My God.
and spin up an application in a day. And um, so um, having code be part of your day to day and having like a co-pilot who is an
Uh-huh.
expert coder, that's right here, right now. And so that means lots of things for folks that are spending tons of time doing those types of things.
Mhm.
So yeah, I see all those different use case applications.
Are you seeing yet clients say, we have a need, let's say for something that's historically joyless, right? Grabbing contacts and creating a guest list of people to come to a town hall. Are you seeing clients yet say, we can just go ahead and code for that rather than asking one of the administrative associates on our team to tackle that?
Yeah, I think there's operational, let's call them kind of units of work in any part of the HR service delivery model, from like talent acquisition to comp to talent management, learning, ops. Like an example of what you just described would be um, like outbound emails to coordinate with candidates and
Hmm.
schedule time, and recruiting coordinators like that,
Hmm.
so that's there's a lot of operational components to that that are kind of word intensive and then workflow driven that you can solve for with like a generative AI agent, and having that agent be summarizing and sending out words to and from a person, and then coordinating on the calendar within your tech stack, as an example.
It's amazing. And so, for those who might not be as familiar with how it works when you bring in a true expert to do this exact work, walk us through when you parachute into a client, how do you help them get it, assess, get ahead of the game, and very much gain all the advantages that AI can do to help them for whatever their business goal is? How does it all work?
Yeah, so there's broadly there's kind of two ways into experimenting and using AI. Way one is what many organizations do is usually through enterprise tech or a central like tech and science unit. There's we're proud to announce that we've signed an enterprise license with, take your pick, like, OpenAI, and we have GPT-4o and a safe, accessible way to use generative AI on our own information and collateral inside the firewall, and just, everyone try it out.
Right.
That type
And
of thing.
everyone's thrilled. Everyone's excited. Let's get going. This will create efficiency. And then
Yeah,
what
yeah.
comes next?
Where that can lead to is like interest and then lack of usage, and it's not dissimilar from something you and I have talked a lot about, Jamie, too, is just like more kind of run of the mill, like analytics, reporting, dashboarding. It's like we built a dashboard, it's great, has all the stuff in it. We make it available to folks, try it out. And if it's not targeted to specific problems and specific issues, it can get a little old quickly. And
Sure.
so what I see is that companies that have, a couple of clients of ours have created some uh, accessible like AI sandbox environments where you can like suggest, let's try this type of information, and have an AI bot sit on top of it. Um, One way or another, you're kind of getting into way two, in which is finding the right problem to solve, and that's harder. And you can kind of work your way towards that through trial and error. But something that we help clients do is to understand how all of their HR programs and processes uh, generate data, where that data goes, and then how it's kept up, kept clean, usable, analytically helpful along the way, and how it shows up in reports. So, understanding how your work gets done and the information that's generated is really, really key. And so, discovery, finding the right problem to solve, and then figuring out the information components that ride those workflows. If there's a lot of docs and text and words, that's informationally intense. That's usually a good recipe for where AI can help summarize and help you just navigate a bunch of information faster to get your work done. So.
So in this discovery, you'll help the client think through the whole workflow, all the all the points of contact to solve that problem. And then are you helping them, let's say, for example, dissect specific initiatives that can be improved? So for example, let's say a business problem is we want to we want to get rid of joyless work, or we want to improve upon the employee experience and help them be kind of most cost productive and cost effective and productive. Like, how would you even tackle that problem? Because I'd imagine when clients come to you, there are so many things that they want to solve, and you have to kind of start with helping them boil the ocean.
Yeah, you definitely want to avoid the ocean boil. And so, yeah, like with generative AI, like our at Icona, we have our core offering is a kind of a scan, a diagnostic of enterprise HR data ecosystem, which is to say, like, how do all your programs and processes work and generate data, and then how is that data stored and then analyzed and then put into things like reports and dashboards. And part of the analyze segment of that chain is generative AI is that is an analytic capability that kind of sits within technology and depends on data coming in from processes and programs. So
Mhm.
during discovery, trying to find the right problem to solve, when you assess how uh, healthy and mature data generating processes are, you can look at the type of data that's being generated. Is it of high quality, of a certain consistency? Is it being pipelined in a way that is accessible for analysis? When processes score low on those questions, often they're high contenders for generative AI. So by that I mean, if you take a process, something that is historically and kind of notoriously uh, lower from a data maturity standpoint is something like succession planning,
Mhm.
right? Um, Many HR organizations and companies have this program, I'll call it. It's not usually something that's from a data standpoint consistently captured through a user interface, landing in software. It's kind of like a human programmatic thing. We create slates. It's usually at a certain like altitude in the org for certain roles. And we'll pull a bunch of data together. We might baseball card that on PowerPoint
Mhm.
slides, and then we'll have conversations, and the output of that is captured. Rarely is all that captured like in product. And so, but it's captured somewhere. Like, so the data is there, the words are there, the docs are there. Like when you think about that being kind of an immature process
Mhm.
from a data scalability standpoint in the traditional terms of landing it in technology and like, oh, we use this succession planning software. It's like,
Yeah.
well, you probably don't, but if you don't, but you generate a lot of information that's like on this drive and in that
Uh-huh.
folder, that low score is a good contender for generative AI, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. It does. And so just to think of a practical example, in the succession planning, the data could be a deck, several decks that were created with all the prep meetings for the final succession planning meeting. All those decks are on a drive, emails between people about what the skinny is that they might think on someone who's a potential successor, or the company's competencies that they're using as a lens. And all of this is happening via emails that are happening, decks that are being created, or
Yes.
systems that are information's being inputted into them.
Yes. Yeah. If there's a write-up on a human being, like,
Right.
scope of role, accomplishments, yeah, how they show up with his or her team, what their team had to say about them, like words, it's that that is very, very like strong use case for a bot in a controlled way. This is like
Sure.
highly, highly sensitive. You're
Of
talking
course.
about senior most leaders in the company, but that process, succession planning, is one of 3 dozen processes. Usually there's 3 dozen major processes across half a dozen big domains in HR,
Hmm.
but succession planning is in talent development and learning.
Hmm.
Put it in there.
Sure.
That's one vertical process that generates data, and then that data goes somewhere, it's stored, it might not be in a database, it's on a drive. So like data is generated in Word docs, stored on a drive here.
Mhm.
We analyze it. Meh, we don't really analyze it. We analyze it when we stare at it and we're in the meeting and we're talking about it. But and then we make big decisions
Yeah.
based on that. And how successful were those decisions? That doesn't really get captured. So AI doesn't solve for all of that,
Mhm.
um, but it can be really insightful and useful for pulling together, if you're talking about 10 roles and five potentials on the slate per
Uh-huh.
role, and there's a 5-page write-up per
Mhm.
couple hundred pages that maybe a bot can help you synthesize and pattern spot in ways that you just hadn't considered before.
Listening to this, I'm almost picturing a MBA Ivy League trained intern that doesn't sleep, that just goes and digs into everything, gets all the information and puts it in the most succinct, thoughtful, user-friendly, digestible format. And then if we were to say, you know what, I actually want that information, not in Word, but in a chart, they have the energy to kind of go and then put it in a chart, like whatever it is that you
Yeah.
need.
Yeah, good analogy. I'd err on the side of being conservative about how um, about the pedigree of the intern in that example. I think like it's an intern, and that intern throw whatever you want at it informationally, and like I need you to tomorrow or in the next 5 minutes tell me the key themes here
Uh-huh.
across all of these candidates and do to what extent what you're seeing on these candidate write-ups, how much does it reflect the values and principles
Mhm.
in our leadership principles
Mhm.
and what we've talked about in town hall transcripts over the last 3 years? Just
Mhm.
cross-reference that too, and also cross-reference our leadership development content that we have and highlight anything that might be relevant for a particular candidate based on where they're short and where we're
Mhm.
long. It's like, oh, you want that when?
You want that
That's
now? Right.
that's months. That's months. No, no, no. It could be minutes, actually. If you take some time to spot the need, identify the information sources that flow
Yeah.
into that decision ultimately, and then put this um, this really, really uh, facile intern
Mhm.
into the flow of work
Mhm.
at a particular point and be available to you whenever you want for answers. And they'll be an arbiter of fact checking and decision making in the meeting. And they'll never say a word other than what you ask them. And, just tell us a little bit more about so and so. That's
Yeah.
referenceable whenever you want. That's sort of the non-human worker part
Yeah.
at work for you.
Love. I have to think of a
Yeah.
really innovative name for the intern that I'm visualizing in my mind. So this is such a good use case for succession planning. And another one that comes to mind, and we deal with clients challenge all the time. They have a new head of HR who's kind of
Right.
parachuted in, and they're, in those first 90 days, they're trying to get a sense of the people on their team and all the processes and also build relationships and it's a lot. So that's another thing I'm thinking through about how AI could really create, cost effective, meaningful time, how it can just save and so many things and just give a good output. Can you give examples of kind of any clients you've worked with where you've solved for that first bit of time where they parachute in and they're just a teensy bit overwhelmed?
Yeah, yeah, sure. We have I won't say who, but we have a project live right now, and we had one last year. In both cases, the the activating event, so to speak, was the head of HR joining the org and reached out to me and Icona and said, hey, Ian, I joined the org a couple months ago. I've had a look around at our data, at our reports, at our analytics, at our operating model, our processes, etc. Not loving what I'm seeing. Um, can you come in and use the Icona framework to help us understand our data, our processes, our technology, the capabilities we have? What are we working with? What aren't we working with? What does good look like?
Hmm.
Um, assess, show us what good looks like externally, put us on a roadmap, help us understand where we should make smart like decisions to build or buy or borrow, and that's what we do. And that's kind of a diagnostic scan across your HR service delivery model, all of your processes, kind of as columns, so to speak, and all the
Mhm.
data capabilities as rows, and that whole ecosystem is something that can be analyzed, and we use AI to do that, and uh, and that helps companies understand their entire kind of ecosystem of operation
Or
faster than it would take. It would take, heads of people analytics, and I was one and still am one, but in the corporate seat, like
yeah,
that's your job is to come in, and the head of HR has the same challenge is to how does this place work?
yeah.
what's what's red, what's pink, what's blue, like what's on fire,
Mhm.
what do we need to pay attention to? Sometimes that's obvious, sometimes it's not so obvious,
Mhm.
and it takes time to kind of make your way around and navigate and stay on top of the entire picture, and
Yeah.
that's something that I saw as a corporate practitioner at Amazon and JP and Google and
Mhm.
other places, and we put that in an AI enabled framework, and then we bring that to clients as an offering. And
Mhm.
um, so yeah, just understanding the roadmap based on a full view of where you are is is something that we bring.
It's great. And then it really, I would imagine, sets that new head of HR who, is improving mode, kind of sets them up for success to kind of how have all that laid out. And then thinking of them in role for a while. So what are kind of, we talked about succession planning. Are there kind of two or three other blow our mind ideas, kind of examples of where there's potential process improvement that just we should be thinking about?
Yeah, so I think one thing that we see really consistently is heads of HR uh, and business leaders for that matter. They're not so inclined to think about like the HR org as something that needs to be, optimized. Like shipping your org chart to a leader of a business unit is not a good move. What is a good move is to think about what are the goals that the business is trying to drive.
Mhm.
How does the HR function support that from a human capital strategy perspective? And then what are some of the analytic tech and ops enablers to support those people plans? Like that's um, I think that's in many ways HR 101, but
Mhm.
it's hard to pull off when you don't understand how your different HR programs and processes come together to
Mhm.
create a better outcome. Like how do we find and build um, and attract and reward the best salespeople in the world? That's
Mhm.
not really an HR question as much as it's a business question,
Right.
and HR is in the business of bringing great talent in. Um, so for that one, you need to you need to work across horizontally across many different verticalized processes like talent acquisition, candidate sourcing, ATS, selection and assessment. What's the right pay package? How do we onboard them effectively? What do they need to learn in their first 90 days? How do we cut across all of the programs and processes that HR brings in kind of separate ways to create a better experience
Mhm.
that ties to a bigger business outcome? So going from this horizontal orientation to
Yeah.
one that's more, or I'm sorry, vertical orientation, one
Yeah.
that's more
Yeah.
horizontal
Less silo.
is
Yeah.
how many times that have your clients, Jamie? I'm sure I've heard this phrase a lot. Um, said, I need you to ignore the org chart on this one. It's like, what does that mean? It's like, well, I need you to go over these fences and work with them over there, and we have to learn how to share our toys. And it's like,
Yeah.
yep. So that sort of like horizontal orientation is more than just words. That can be an intentional technology infrastructure
Mhm.
design pattern and an analytic thesis you
Mhm.
have to say, all right, we need data from all these different
Right.
places.
Pull it.
Uh,
Yeah.
and that's for building better sales leaders or strategic workforce planning, cuts
Mhm.
across, depending on how you scope it, 7 to 10 HR core processes and finance data and procurement data
Mhm.
and IT and external labor market data. So that's super horizontal. So
Yeah.
how equipped are you to go at that one? It's like that's a really powerful use case, but it's hard to build uh, if you don't think horizontally. So
Right.
yeah, I would go there with it.
And we've all been in those roles where they do say, we need to supercharge X team, motivate, attract the best and the brightest, retain them, motivate, reward. And let's be honest, it can take an army of humans to have those conversations, to work through the nuance, to figure out where the data is. And this, I can imagine, I'm just curious about the ROI on it. Um, the time and eventual savings that there is. And I'd love if you have any thoughts on what the ROA is, because we speak with clients all the time, and everyone's at their different place in their AI journey, and we just meet them where they are. But there are some folks who are kind of at the enthusiastic learner stage, and they're just cautious before jumping in. And yeah, I'd love an example of kind of what the ROI is, so that it might be more motivating for them to kind of take the leap.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think colloquially we hear the phrase like, like uh, building like a 10x worker, like a 10x productive, like software engineer, or an analyst. Like back to the coding example, the ROI on having like an AI assisted um, analyst or a data engineer, 10x I think is conservative,
Hmm.
meaning like um, if you gave the blank screen challenge to an analyst to write me query statements to go and get the data we need from the source systems that are required for strategic workforce planning, like we just talked
Hmm.
about. And I need you to map specific data objects in that
Hmm.
query and bring it all together in a new schema. And we're gonna build reports off of that. Go. You give that to someone who's not using AI, and then
Hmm.
give it to someone who is using AI.
Hmm.
I think 10x is like really, really conservative to
Hmm.
think about how
Hmm.
much faster an AI assisted
Hmm.
human being.
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, it's minutes compared to days,
Huh. And I was also,
literally.
it's amazing. And I was also thinking about that whole, just kind of visualizing the whole ecosystem, right? That you kind of laid out.
Yes.
I would imagine that it could take months to kind of put all of that together. And the example of trying to really supercharge a sales team,
Yeah.
that could take months compared to probably what's weeks.
Yeah. I mean, what just another like ROI data point that obviously is close to home with Icona, and it's the reason we built the assessment in the first place in many ways, is that when you think about the the way that data is managed, stacked with infrastructure, and then analyzed with methods, and then put into product formats, those are dimensions that we analyze 3 dozen processes and programs in HR off of. That matrix is big and it's dense and it's super complicated, and um, it takes a new head of people analytics new to the org. It takes 18 to 24 months to really work your way around the
Mhm.
entire HR production
Mhm.
ecosystem, get into the nooks and crannies, understand what's painful, what's broken. Some things jump out to you right away. It's not to
Mhm.
say it takes that long to understand and build, your plan. But I will contend that it takes that long to really get your plan right and to
Uh-huh.
create a
Fine tune.
program
Yeah.
that you're like, all right, we got it right. We did a lot of the heavy lifting. Now we're ready to level up.
Mhm.
That it's a journey in many ways because of how complicated it is to understand all of uh, the kind of data capabilities and HR production systems
Mhm.
that are inside a company. So
Mhm.
um, you can use AI to help you understand like how do your processes work,
Mhm.
how are they not working well for you? Where does the data go? How do insights show up? Talk to
Mhm.
us about permission. So when you have a conversation with someone like we're having now, we hit on many, many topics. And if you do that, a couple dozen times with as many different experts, you're generating thousands of pages of knowledge that's not captured anywhere. And then you can organize that with AI and help spot where opportunities are. And that's
Mhm.
so we do in weeks what takes, I think manually like many, many, many months to do. So
And that gives people their time back to do the more strategic. And it is so good speaking with you. Like I said,
it's so good to talk to you too.
I never leave our conversations without a couple of ahas. And I am so looking forward to continuing the conversation. We might even do a part two on this because we have so many questions
We
that
should, we
clients
should.
have. But thank you so much for your wisdom, and I will look forward to our next conversation.
Awesome. Me too, Jamie. Thanks.
Thank you.